guys, it's Emily here at Thrive Wellness Center, and I just was going to come and talk to you guys a little bit today about macronutrients, what they are, the role that they play in your health, and some good sources of some and not so good sources of some. All right. So first we'll start off with what macronutrients are. So macronutrients include things like the category of protein, carbs, and fats. So those are your three macronutrients. We also have some things called micronutrients. Micronutrients are things like your vitamins and minerals. So if you're a patient here, that would include like your supplements and whatnot. All right, so we'll first start off with protein. So protein has 4 calories per gram of protein. Just kind of, spitballing some facts. And what protein does is protein utilizes amino acids, which help build up the body. So protein is essential for healing. So this is why I do push lots of protein when I'm talking with patients and clients about how to heal their body, how to have a better diet, and all of that good stuff. Proteins come from the main source of them being meats. So things like, beef, chicken, lamb, fish, all that good stuff. You also can get a sufficient amount of protein from things like eggs, nuts and seeds, some beans. All of those are good sources of protein. When you get into the nuts and seeds and the beans category, you are going to run into a little bit more of heavier carbohydrate proteins. So we'll get to that point when we talk about carbs too. But good sources of protein do include things like good grass-fed beef, grass-fed lamb, pork. So, good sources of sausage and bacon. Yes, you can have sausage and bacon. What you need to look out for when you're looking at your protein is getting it from a good source. So there's a lot of association with, heart disease and red meats, or cholesterol and red meats, all of that kinds of stuff. So this is true to an extent. It is true that those things can happen when you're getting stuff from a bad source. So always consider your sourcing. We'll do another video here soon about organic produce, why it's so important to have organic produce, so on and so forth. Okay, just want to make sure I get all my things about protein. Oh, and then also a huge thing with protein, one of the first things I work on with clients when we're working on diet is breakfast. Breakfast is so important because a high protein, high fat breakfast is going to help reduce sugar cravings later in the day. It's also going to help increase energy. So there are some good things about protein there. All right, next we'll move on to fat. So fat is, you have about 9 calories per gram of fat. So this is something I do want to point out. When you're looking at health foods, a big thing that I know is super popular in the world, it's just a fad, but getting those lower calorie foods. So yes, there is an extent where if you're eating under your calorie deficit, you could lose weight. But there's also a portion of that that's not true, because it also really matters about the quality of the fuel you're putting into your body to help your body lose that weight if that's your goal. So one of the things I always let patients know is just because it's low calorie doesn't mean it's necessarily healthy for you. Fat-free stuff that's like naturally supposed to have fat in it, and they extract the fat. So like if you're going to have a yogurt, I always recommend a full fat yogurt. So like a Greek full fat organic yogurt, plain, that is the way to go. We don't want the reduced fat items. They're more processed. You're missing out on a ton of nutrients by eliminating that fat. And also a lot of the time fat-free means more processing and added chemicals. So you want to avoid those as well. So yes, fatty foods have a higher calorie count, but if it's coming from the right source, it's going to be a nutrient-dense, higher calorie item, which is important to think about, okay? So like I said, a lot of our fats are found in our protein foods. So like, if you get grass-fed beef, I always encourage like the 85-15 or 80-20% ratio of lean to fat, because you're going to be getting that really great essential fatty acids from the grass-fed source, because you're supposed to eat animals that you're eating, you should consume only if they're eating what they're supposed to be eating. So grain-fed cows are supposed to eat grass. So grain-fed cows are not ideal to consume because you're not getting as much benefit from them as a grass-fed cow. Same with chickens, free-range chickens that are able to eat the vegetation in the area, the bugs, all that sort of stuff are much more beneficial and have a higher nutrient content than mass-produced chickens that never see the light of day and shoved in tiny cages. So you don't want to eat those sources of protein. You want to eat the more clean, reliable sources of protein because you are going to get the maximum benefit from those things. All right, next, so meats have high protein or high fat in them, good fat. Other fats are like your oils, so coconut oil, olive oil, avocado oil, all of that good stuff. Things like avocados are a really good fat. Things like actual coconut, so like just coconut slivers or coconut chips, that sort of thing, that's a really good essential fatty acid source. Oh, and I can't believe I almost forgot my favorite, butter. So eat some butter. Eat grass-fed butter. It's the bomb. Put it on everything. Put it all over your vegetables. Cook your stuff in it. It's delish. All right, so like I said, fat is important for getting those nutrients from the good sources of fat. It is crucial for hormone balance. So like we've talked about before, a lot of issues can stem from hormone imbalance. Essential fatty acids or healthy fats help balance those hormones, okay? So we have what we call a lipo bilayer around our cells. So lipo meaning fat. Literally it's a layer, it's like a little gateway that opens up and lets nutrients into our cells so that they can do the jobs they're supposed to and get things done. Well, if you're not eating enough essential fatty acids, that gate, it stays locked. So you want to make sure you're consuming enough of these so that that gate opens. It can let in minerals, it can let in water, it can let in all these things that it needs to function properly, okay? So again, make sure you're eating enough good fat. All right, let me make sure I got everything about the fats. Oh, we'll touch on cholesterol for a hot second. So cholesterol also gets this bad rep. There is bad cholesterol. So you have, when you go get blood work done, you have your LDLs, your HDLs, and your triglycerides. So LDL is going to be your not so great cholesterol. That's the number you do want to keep at a certain level. HDL is going to be your healthy cholesterol, and your triglycerides are just another category of cholesterol. Triglycerides and your LDL are the ones that you do want to watch out for, not to get them too high. Also keep in mind that as time goes on, those categories of healthy levels are shifting. So always stay, on your toes about a diagnosis or a thought that your cholesterol might be too high. Along those lines, when you get your total cholesterol, what that number is your LDL and your HDL cholesterol combined together. So let's say you're approached and it's like, hey, your total cholesterol is too high. Well, you really want to look into that broken down, because that may be very well because your healthy cholesterol is up above where it needs to be. So that's a good thing. We want that healthy cholesterol higher. So always look into that. When it comes to cholesterol, there's also myths about different fatty foods and things like that. So eating good, healthy fat is not going to worsen your cholesterol if your body's able to digest it properly as well too. So that's a whole other thing too. So come in, get checked for some enzymes that help digest fat and protein. That's really important. But also, those things are going to help level out cholesterol in a good way. Those good healthy fats are going to do that. So when you're looking at cholesterol, again, just make sure you keep in mind, put a perspective on it and get all the details, not just, oh, hey, your cholesterol's high sort of thing. But what is done with cholesterol, liver produces cholesterol, and then obviously the foods we eat can either increase or decrease it depending on what you're eating. So keep eating those good fats, those good sources of protein to help even those numbers out. Okay. Then last but not least, we have the category of carbohydrates. So carbohydrates are a macronutrient as well. They have 4 calories per gram. So carbohydrates are things like potatoes, pastas, breads, candies, cakes, all those things. Within carbohydrates, you have 2 different groups of carbohydrates amongst that. So you have what we call your simple carbohydrates and your simple and refined carbohydrates. So simple is going to be like, your quinoas and your rices and things like that. Your refined carbohydrates are going to be more of your sugary items. So your cakes, your cookies, things that are more processed. All carbohydrates are essentially sugar that turn into sugar in the body, even vegetables. So vegetables are even considered a carbohydrate. So keep that in mind. When we talk to patients about carbs and working with carbs, it's not necessarily ever a good thing to cut out a total macronutrient group because you get specific things from those groups. But you do want to pay attention to the sources of those carbohydrates. So looking at things like, your quinoas, sweet potatoes, red skin potatoes, all of that kinds of stuff, you really want to pay attention to because those are going to be your good sources of carbs. Your bad sources of carbs are things like your cookies, cakes, things like white breads, pastas, especially wheat nowadays, not an ideal source of carbs to be getting into your diet. So what we want to do is reduce those bad carbs, increase our better carbs, and eat those over those not as nutrient dense carbohydrates. I don't really like to say bad food per se, because we want to have a good relationship with food, but you also want to make sure that you are reducing those less nutrient dense carbs. So doing your red skin potatoes, sweet potatoes, quinoa, organic rice, those are all really important to get from those sources versus the other. All right, let me make sure we have, okay, so yeah, carbs are used for quick energy by the body. So, a little boost it gives you, that's kind of like that sugar high you get. So it's like your body's intaking all those carbohydrates if you eat something sugary. So you go up and then you drop. That's just your insulin going way up and then dropping way down from the sugar. So you want to avoid that up and down kind of factor. And also excess carbs are stored as fat. So that's why if you're working on losing weight or maintaining good weight, then keeping your carbohydrates at a good happy medium for your body is really important. And then also what excess carbs do is cause inflammation. Inflammation is the root cause of disease. So keeping your inflammation low is really important as well. All right, awesome. And then I'll just go over a few little tips to kind of wrap up the macronutrient info here. So first things first, I always say protein at every meal. Focus on that. Good protein at every meal is really important to keep the body healing, keep you energized, and keep you avoiding more of those sugar cravings that you might be having. Second, eat plenty of good fat. So eating good fat is going to also continue to keep things balanced, heal the body, keep you feeling satisfied as well. So good fats do help keep us satiated and make sure that we don't reach for those snacky foods during the day. All right. The third one, like I said, reducing your less nutrient-dense carbs and replacing them with more nutrient-dense carbs is going to be something that's really important as well. Then we have stay well hydrated because those are going to help absorb all those good nutrients that you are eating. And then also enjoy food that helps nourish you, mind, body, and soul, all of the above. You should be enjoying your food all the time. It's there to help build us up. So everybody, I hope you have a wonderful day. We'll be coming back to talk later about more nutrient dense items this week. Thanks.